name is Nishat Noor and welcome to Millennium Headlines. This week's top headlines are: Trump Kim converge on Singapore ahead of high-stakes summit. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un converged on this island city-state Sunday ahead of one of the most unusual and highly anticipated summits in recent world history, a sit-down meant to settle a standoff over Pyongyang's nuclear arsenal. Trump descended from Air Force One into the steamy Singapore night, greeting officials and declaring he felt very good, before he was whisked away to his hotel, driving along a route lined with police and photo-snapping onlookers. Trump traveled to Singapore from Canada, where he met with other world leaders. Those countries make up the Group of Seven. Hours earlier, a jet carrying Kim landed. After shaking hands with the Singapore foreign minister, Kim sped through the streets in a limousine, two large North Korean flags flirting on the hood, surrounded by other black vehicles and tinted windows, and bound for the luxurious and closely guarded St. Regis Hotel. He and Trump were set to meet Tuesday morning in the first summit of its kind between a leader of North Korea and sitting U.S. president. The North has faced crippling diplomatic and economic sanctions as it has advanced development of its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Trump has said he hopes to make a legacy-defining deal for the North to give up its nuclear weapons, though he has recently sought to manage expectations, saying that it may take more than one meeting. The North, many experts believe, stands on the brink of being able to target the entire U.S. mainland with its nuclear-armed missiles, and while there's a deep skepticism that Kim will quickly give up those hand-won nukes, there's also some hope that diplomacy can replace the animosity between the U.S. and the North. U.S. and North Korean officials are set to meet Monday morning in Singapore to make final preparations for Tuesday's meeting. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said Sung Kim, the U.S. ambassador to the Philippines, who has taken the lead on policy negotiations with the North, will hold a working group with the North Korean delegation. The North Korean autocrat's every move will be followed by 3,000 journalists who have converged on Singapore and by gawkers around the world up until he shakes hands with Trump on Tuesday. It's a reflection on the intense global curiosity over Kim's sudden turn to diplomacy in recent months after a slew of North Korean nuclear and missile tests have last year raised serious fears of war. Part of the interest in Tuesday's summit is simply because Kim has had limited appearances on the world stage. He has only publicly left his country 3 times since taking over after his father's death in late 2011, traveling twice in China and once across his shared border with the southern part of the demilitarized zone in recent summits with the leaders of China and South Korea respectively. But it's Kim's pursuit of nuclear weapons that gives his meeting with Trump such high stakes. The meeting was initially meant to rid North Korea of its nuclear weapons, but the talks have been portrayed by Trump in recent days more as a get-to-know-you session. Trump has also raised the possibility of further summits and an agreement ending the Korean War by replacing the armistice signed in 1953 with a peace treaty. China and South Korea would have to sign off on any legal treaty. It's unclear what Trump and Kim might decide Tuesday. Pyongyang has said it is willing to deal away its entire nuclear arsenal if the United States provides it with a reliable security assurances and other benefits. But many say this is highly unlikely given how hard it has been for Kim to build his program, and given that the weapons are seen as the major guarantee to holding onto unchecked power. Another possibility from the summit is to deal with the Korean War, which North Korea has long demanded presumably in part to get U.S. troops off the Korean peninsula and eventually pave the way for the North Korean-led unified Korea. The fighting ended on July 27, 1953, but the war technically continues today because instead of difficult to negotiate peace treaty, military officers for the U.S. and the United Nations, North Korea, and China signed an armistice that halted the fighting. The North may see a treaty and its presumed safety assurances from Washington on its best way of preserving the Kim family dynasty. The ensuing recognition as a normal country could then allow sanctions, belief, and later international aid investment. Just meeting with Trump will also give Kim a recognition North Korea has long sought, setting him up as global player and the leader of a country worthy of respect. Putin says willing to meet Trump whenever U.S. is ready. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Sunday that he's happy to meet the U.S. President Donald Trump once Washington is ready to hold the summit and welcomed Trump's call to bring Moscow back to the G7 group of leading industrialized nations. Speaking to reporters in Qingdao, China, Putin and some other nations, including Austria, have offered to host his summit with Trump, should they have one. The U.S. president has repeatedly said that it's reasonable to hold such a meeting. Putin said on the sidelines of a summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. As soon as the U.S. side is ready, the meeting will take place, depending, of course, on my working schedule. Putin said he shares Trump's expression of concern about a renewed arms race expressed in a March phone call. I can confirm that President Trump voiced concern about a newfound of arms race in our latest call, Putin said. I fully agree with him, he said, adding that personal meetings and work by experts are needed to tackle the issue. Putin's remarks follow a report that White House officials were working towards setting up a meeting. Trump has said he was open to having a summit with Putin, who U.S. intelligence officials have said directed Russian meddling in the 2016. I can confirm that President Donald Trump voiced concern about a new round of arms race in our latest call, Putin said. I fully agree with him, he said, adding that personal meetings and work by experts are needed to tackle this issue. Putin's remarks follow a report that White House officials were working toward setting up a meeting. Trump has said that he was open to having a summit with Putin, who U.S. intelligence officials have said directed Russian meddling in the 2016 election to help Trump win. The American leader has repeatedly said he wants to improve relations with Moscow. Russia was expelled from the grouping in 2014 after it invaded and annexed Crimea, and for its support for a pro-Russia separatist in Ukraine. Trump, however, suggested that the G7 offer a seat at the table to Russia. Earlier Sunday, Putin criticized the U.S. withdrawal from the Iranian nuclear deal in a speech at the summit. He emphasized that the bloc's members, who also include China, four ex-Soviet Central Asian nations, as well as India and Pakistan, are worried about the U.S. move. Putin said the Washington's decision to exit the agreement could destabilize the situation in the region. He added that the Moscow will continue to honor its obligations under the Iranian nuclear deal. Last month, Trump pulled out of former U.S. President Barack Obama's landmark 2015 nuclear accord with Iran over the objections of European allies and other nations. Addressing the summit, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, whose country has an observer status in the group, said that Iran would expect other participants in the nuclear deal to provide guarantees that they would honor the agreement. Federal judge temporarily blocks deportation of visa workers. A Federal judge on Saturday temporarily blocked the deportation of a New York pizza shop worker to a native Ecuador after he was arrested while making a delivery to a Brooklyn Army base. Attorneys for the Legal Aid Society obtained a temporary stay for Pablo V. after a hearing in Manhattan federal court. The 35-year-old married father of two young girls was arrested on June 1st while making delivery to the garrison in Fort Hamilton. A routine background check revealed there was a warrant for his arrest for immigration law violations. Federal Judge Allison Nathan granted the stay until July 20th. Villavicencio will remain in Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody in New Jersey until his case goes to court. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo had asked federal Homeland Security officials to look into his case, saying recent detentions raised significant legal questions. In a letter to ICE office in New York, the Democrat said Villavicencio's expedited removal serves no legitimate public safety purpose, and the circumstances leading to his arrest and detention raise serious legal and policy concerns. Villavicencio's wife, Sandra Chica, is an American citizen, and their daughters, ages 2 and 3, were born in the U.S. When he arrived at Fort Hamilton, guards requested identification and he produced a city identification card. A background check showed that Villavicencio had been ordered to leave the United States in 2010 but stayed. Redmond Haskins, a spokesman for the Legal Aid Society, a nonprofit organization that provides free services to clients who cannot afford them, said Villavicencio has no criminal record. Haskins said attorneys worked through the night preparing the emergency stay request that had argued to court on Saturday afternoon. Although we are disappointed that Pablo will remain detained, today's stay is a victory for him and his family, and also for due process and the fair administration of justice, said Gregory Copeland, the supervising attorney of Legal Aid's Immigration Law Unit. This decision is also a reminder that the judiciary can still serve as a powerful check when other branches of government make hasty, cold, reckless decisions. The attorney said they will work with V to help him secure valid immigration status. Bourdain's death means loss of a voice for immigrant workers. Anthony Bourdain's culinary passions went far beyond the cuisine he put on a plate. He also was committed to the immigrant workers who toil in his other kitchens throughout the restaurant industry. Bourdain, who died Friday in France in an apparent suicide at age 61, was an outspoken critic of President Donald Trump's immigration policies and a fierce defender of Hispanic workers. The chef, global traveler, and author, whose popularity grew with his CNN series, Parts Unknown, often was the first to tip his hat to his employees from Central America or Mexico. He promoted his Mexican-born sous chef, the late Carlos Garcia, to run 2 of his New York restaurants, and complained loudly about the United States' ridiculously hypocritical attitudes toward immigration. Some, of course, like to claim that Mexicans are stealing American jobs, Bourdain said in 2014. But in 2 decades as a chef and employer, I have never had one American kid walk in my door and apply for the dishwashing job, a porter's position, or even a job as a prep cook. During the 2016 presidential campaign session, Bourdain slammed Trump's promises to deport immigrants in the U.S. illegally and build a wall along the Mexican border. If Mr. Trump deports 11 million people, or whatever he's talking about right now, every restaurant in America would shut down. Bourdain said it in an interview with SiriusXM Radio. Trump has said the wall is needed to keep immigrants and drugs out of the U.S., and his policies are designed to keep the country safe. Julian Medina, the owner of 8 Mexican restaurants in New York, said he and Bourdain crossed paths a few times in the industry events. The Latino community was very important to him because in the kitchens of New York there are many Latinos, Medina said. He supported that because he always worked beside a Latino and put Carlos in charge of his kitchen. Sol Montiel, executive chef at the Mexican restaurant Cantina Rooftop in Manhattan, said Garcia, who died of cancer in 2015, always spoke highly of Bourdain. For an episode of Bourdain's Travel Channel show, No Reservations, Garcia gave Bourdain a tour of his hometown, Pueblo. Bourdain claimed all the best cooks in his New York restaurants came from there. Montiel, who started in the business washing dishes 15 years ago, said Bourdain was one of the few chefs that valued the work of the Latinos in the kitchen. There are many chefs, he said, that never recognize the hard work of the Hispanics. El Messina is an executive chef in Scottsdale, Arizona, who was born in Mexico, remembers when Bourdain featured his home state of On Parts Unknown. He liked that Bourdain went to smaller villages and wasn't afraid to sit on the floor and eat, sampling traditional dishes such as tamales with a mole negro sauce, wrapped in banana leaves instead of corn husks. When he goes somewhere, he always finds the place where he can find the root of the culture, Messina said. I was so impressed about how down-to-earth he is and his sense of humor. Occasionally, Bourdain's penchant to spotlight minorities attracted a backlash. Last year, a blogger accused him of banning white chefs from getting exposure on Parts Unknown episode on Houston's culinary scene. Bourdain responded on Twitter calling it shameful, dishonest, race-baiting clickbait. Latinos weren't the only minority group that embraced Bourdain. Jason Wang, CEO of ZN Famous Foods in New York, planned to donate profits to all its locations on Friday to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. In a Facebook post, Wang said Bourdain's impact on his family's Chinese street food business was immeasurable. In 2007, Bourdain endorsed the Wang's Basement Food stall, which served lamb noodle soup with hand-ripped noodles on No Reservations. The bump in business was swift. Wang and his father gradually went from that stall to 6 eateries. In 2015, Wang had the chance to relay his gratitude in person. I looked at him in the eyes and said, "This is something we will always be thankful for, Tony," Wang wrote, and he simply replied, "I'm just calling out good food like it is, that's all." Anger in Israel after Argentina cancels soccer match. Argentina has called off a pre-World Cup exhibition match with Israel following political pressure and claims of threats towards players, sparking outrage from Israeli officials. Argentina's players decided to pull out of the game, which was scheduled to take place in Jerusalem on Saturday, in solidarity with superstar teammate Lionel Messi. Argentinian President Mauricio Macri told CNN in Espanol on Wednesday. Palestinian officials were outraged by the decision to hold the match in the contested city. On Sunday, Palestinian Football Association chief Jibril Rajoub launched a campaign against the Argentinian Football Association, AFA, and specifically Messi, and called on people to burn T-shirts of the soccer player. The AFA's acceptance to play with Israel in Jerusalem have reminded us all of how Israel uses sports as a tool to whitewash its actions, Rajoub said in a statement Sunday. It was unclear if the Palestinian campaign prompted Messi to quit the fixture, and the star has not publicly commented on the matter. CNN has contacted Messi for comment. Argentina's players reportedly pulled out in solidarity with Lionel Messi. Argentina striker Gonzalo Higuain called the decision the right thing in an interview on ESPN. We left it behind us. Good health and common right thing was not to go, Bigwan said. An AFA official defended Argentina's decision to suspend the match as a positive development Wednesday. I find it positive that the match between Argentina and Israel was suspended. It was the right thing to do. It was not worth it, Hugo Moyano, second vice president of Argentina's Football Association, said in an interview with Argentina's Radio 10. What happens in these places where so many are killed cannot be accepted by any human being. The families of the players were suffering, Moyano added. On Wednesday, the Israeli Football Association laid the blame for the cancellation squarely on the shoulders of Rajub. The Israeli Football Association views with severity the physical and brutal threats that cross every red line made by the head of the Palestinian Association, Jibril Rajub, and will do everything in its power in the world of football institutions to make Rajub and the Palestinian FA accountable, the IFA said in a statement. During a news conference in Ramallah on Wednesday, Rajub said, "I don't think it's a political victory. It's a sports achievement." He was standing next to a banner that read, "From Palestine, thank you, Messi." Later, Rajub told CNN the default lay with Israel. The Israelis mix politics with sports, and this is why Argentina canceled the match, Rajub said. When the fixture was first announced, a possible venue was the Israeli city of Haifa. But an official involved in promoting the match told CNN the Israeli government made clear it wanted the game to take place in Jerusalem. Israeli President Reuven Rivlin expressed concern over the politicized of the issue on Wednesday. "This is indeed a sad morning for the supporters, amongst them some of my grandchildren, but there are values that are bigger even than Messi. The politicization that is apparent on the Argentinian side worries me a lot," Rivlin said. Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman described it as a pity that Argentina's players could not stand up to pressure the Israeli haters are insisting. "We'll not give in to these anti-Semitic supports of terror," he added. Bangladesh clinched historic Asia Cup title. Bangladesh beat six-time champions India by 3 wickets in a thrilling final to lift the Women's 2020 Asia Cup on Sunday. The Tigresses needed 9 runs off the last over, bowled by India captain Harmanpreet Kaur, to seal their maiden title, a daunting task, yet they held their nerve to lead the field as winners. Sanjida Islam took a single in the first ball to give Ramuna Ahmed on 17. The strike Ramuna hit the second for 4 and then took a single, meaning they needed 3 in as many balls. But Sanjida gave a catch to Vida K in the over's 4th delivery, and although Jahanara Alam and Ramuna made 1 in the next ball, a rush of blood on the head for the latter meant she was run out as the Harmanpreet caught her short of the crease. Jahanara was now on strike, needing 2 of the final ball to make history, and she did it thanks to some wonderful running between the wickets. The Tigresses had the top order to thank for the win. All the top 5 batsmen made decent contributions to make the job easy. Openers Aisha Rahman and Shamiha Sultana made 35 in the first wicket to give their team an ideal start in a low-scoring final. India bowler Human Yadav bagged 4 wickets to just 9 runs, but a team effort from Bangladesh ruled her wonderful performance. Batting first, Harmanpreet scored a magnificent 50 to lead India to a modest total of 112 for 9. Winning the toss, Bangladesh captain Salma Khatun opted to field first, and her bowlers did vindicate her decision by showing the form that had earned them plaudits in the tournament. The Indians were 4 wickets down on 32, and they kept losing wickets in regular intervals. However, Harmanpreet was extraordinary on the day, fighting alone to keep the run wheel going. Her 56 off 42 balls, studded with 7 fours, helped India go past the 3-figure. Rita K and Matali Raj added 11 each, while Julan Goswami made 10. Khadija Tul Kubra and Romana Ahmed bagged 2 wickets, while Salma Khatun and Jahanara Alam claimed 1 apiece. Ruhana was adjusted player of the match for her all-around performance on the day, while Harmanpreet was named player of the series. Bangladesh has beaten the Indians on the group stage as well, but on Sunday they had to have nerves on steel to defy a team that had made winning this trophy a habit. It was certainly a dream come true. Thank you for watching Millennium Headlines. This has been Nishat Noor, and see you next week.